I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
We are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. A little while back, an album from one of our favorite artists of the time came out. It's the fourth solo record from St. Vincent, titled St. Vincent. Yeah, self-titled album as a fourth album. You don't see that too often, but I'm a fan of self-titled records. It just always seems to be their signature record. And I wonder why she chose this record. I mean, I know Annie Clark, whose alias is St. Vincent. If you've never listened to St. Vincent, she has a very powerful, different kind of surreal sound to her, but it's definitely just indie rock. There's still a lot of, pop hooks in there. She has a just fantastic voice, but she's doing things on guitar and making sounds and constructing her songs in a way that most artists aren't doing. And actually, I've heard a lot of people say they just can't get into St. Vincent. It's a little too weird for me.
Really?
And I find that to be interesting because at the core, her music really isn't that different. She just distorts the sound.
Yeah.
She just makes it sound unique.
It's very good pop songwriting. Yeah. It's just that she's like pulling guitar lines from Nine Inch Nails and stuff like that and making it grating. And that's what I love about it because I like memorable pop songwriting that sticks with me, but I really like an abrasive, dark sound. Absolutely. That's exactly what St. Vincent has.
Absolutely. Now, we started getting into St. Vincent with her second record, Actor, which that album was creepy as shit. I mean, she really did a nice job of theming that record and making just this dynamic, dark experience. A couple years ago, Strange Mercy came out, her third record, and that was it leaned a little bit more towards electronica. I mean, it brought in a lot of electronic elements, a lot of dancier beats. A couple of the songs on that album were just fantastic, but as an album, it was more of a compilation of just the stuff she was working on at the time. St. Vincent is in a similar format, although I think Annie Clark would agree, since she went on record saying this, that this is just a much more confident sounding
very much
record.
So.
And she has said that it's just because of what she's been going through at the time. Now, I find that interesting because the album opens up with a track called Rattlesnake. Something I'm going to share with you guys is I'm absolutely terrified of snakes. So this song was stressful for me to listen to because it's a story. I mean, Tom, you can help me out here, but it's a story about her going for a walk in the woods, taking off all of her clothes because why the hell not? And then she's on this walk and she hears a rattlesnake. That is the most terrifying goddamn thing I've ever heard in my life. I'm sitting here getting goosebumps right now just thinking about that. Snakes, I can't handle it. Tom, what'd you think about St. Vincent?
I did like it. And immediately, right off the bat, I mean, you mentioned already, St. Vincent's sound. It's so alluring to me. It's so appealing. It just sucks me in. So I knew right off the bat I was going to like it more than dislike it, but it was really about how far I was going to take that. And to determine that, it takes sinking your teeth into the songwriting.
Yeah.
Now, I'll jump in and say, you said this album was more confident. I completely agree. That's totally the most glaring difference to me. And I almost think at times it works to a fault.
Yeah.
It's almost confident to the point where I feel like she's not thinking as much about what she could do to make the album a little bit better.
Yeah.
This feels much more like a compilation of a bunch of tracks than her previous two records that we've reviewed specifically. And particularly, I think that this thing's a little bit front heavy. Now, I think she's still one of the most forward-thinking artists of our time. I also think that Actor was one of the most brilliant albums of like the last decade.
I totally agree.
But so it's coming off with a little bit of expectation just because I know what she can do.
Yeah.
And from that standpoint, I feel like maybe she's settling a little bit.
Yeah. Not to mention, we saw her live with David Byrne last summer, and she was fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean,
incredible.
This lady is one of the most talented people in music right now. The way, like, her control over guitar and her presence and her voice. I mean, she just exudes energy and excitement into her music, and it's such a unique sound that it's hard not to fall in love with it unless you're so put off by a strange or different or what I would call original sound that you can't listen to it. I would challenge everyone whoever says that to push themselves to actually listen to it and dig into it a bit because there's a lot of really cool stuff here. Rattlesnake, it starts off with that electronic like distorted synth melody, do 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 do, but then it starts grating guitars and St. Vincent's whimsical voice going all over the place, falsetto, nice pop hooks in there. Then it goes to Birth in Reverse, Prince, Johnny, Huey Newton, and Digital Witness. All 5 of those tracks are incredible.
Digital Witness in particular blows me away every time I listen to it.
Yes,
I love
absolutely.
it.
Birth in Reverse, I'm a big fan of. I mean, the front half of this record is just fantastic. Then you get to track 6, I Prefer Your Love. I Prefer Your Love to Jesus is the line.
It's a cool song.
It's a cool,
like
it's a cool song. It's a ballad, much more softer, lots of electronic textures. It's kind of where the other songs have been like grating at you like this. This song's just kind of like, oh yeah.
Just kind of floats there. Yeah.
And it's a separator track. It separates the front half of the album to the back half of the album, but it still feels just like an independent track. Now, the problem is that while that song is cool lyrically, I get bored of it really quick. And it's not a long track. It's only 3.5 minutes long. I get bored of a 3.5 minute track that tells me something's wrong in the songwriting. She just doesn't have enough original ideas to keep that song afloat, in my opinion. The rest of the album, I feel like just it kind of follows that line. I mean, there's just not the sense of genius that there is in the front half or in her previous work. These songs are just ideas that she's already presented to you being redone in a different way, and I don't find that they're that engaging. I mean, at some point, you know, you have to give your listener a reason as to why they should keep listening. And if you've already played your hand, you really have nothing to show at the back half. You're just playing the same thing over again. It's kind of like when Apple releases the next generation of iPhone and all they added was one tiny feature and changed the power cord. It's not that cool. Like, why do people do that? And I'm sorry if you're an Apple fan, that's cool. I'm fine with that. I just don't understand it in music because, especially somebody as creative as St. Vincent, I expect more.
Yeah.
And this back half of this album just simply is not is engaging.
It doesn't have that fire.
No.
It doesn't have that fire that lights up the whole first half of the album and that we saw in some of her previous work. And like I said, I think it does come back to that confidence thing, which is, I'll be the first to admit, it's kind of a crappy criticism to say this album's too confident. It sounds stupid, but the thing that I found really endearing and engaging about Strange Mercy and Actor were those kind of glaring insecurities, because it gave St. Vincent as the performer a personality.
It was relatable.
Exactly. It was very relatable. And so when you hear her just go nuts on the guitar, you feel like this is someone very real with a lot of insecurities and problems just like me, who is just absolutely exercising them through her guitar.
Yeah, making an artistic statement through music that challenges the way you feel, that makes you think differently. I mean, it's an artistic approach to dealing with emotion, and it's something that's super addictive for me personally. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love listening to music. I mean, the idea of starting this album off with Rattlesnake was actually, I think, a good move because that album kind of sets the tone for everything you're going to hear. Yes, this is a great song. She's a great songwriter. There's a lot of cool ideas here, but at the core of it, this song really isn't about that much. It's there's nothing really mind-blowing or about this song other than it's kind of a neat story. There's nothing super emotionally challenging with that song. There's nothing to relate to other than my fear, my just absolute terrifyingness of snakes. I'm terrified of snakes. Yeah. Other than that, I really have nothing. And there's a lot of tracks on here that are like that. Now, perhaps we're being a little bit unfair. Perhaps, there's some deeper meaning to the lyrics that we're not keying into, especially on the back half of the album. And I would say that that's a fair criticism of our criticism. Yeah. It's just, I wish you could have presented it in a way that would allow it. I mean, we listened to this album a fair amount. Yeah. I would have liked to have seen her create more of a relationship with the listener. And I'm just not getting that out of the back half of the album. Yeah. Still, the front half of this record has some of the best damn tracks. I mean, I could not get some of those tracks out of my head, constantly in my head. I mean, I think I have them memorized at this point. and quite frankly, that's a sign, that's a signature of a self-titled album, really. It's a signature of a great songwriter. And I have to give St. Vincent respect for that. Doesn't mean that the album's great. It's a solid record just from the front half. I'm going to go 77.
I'm going 77.
77 is the top of Velocities and Music's bell curve. That means that this album is good, and you should definitely check it out. However, don't have huge expectations. Now, if you're a St. Vincent fan, you don't really care if it's a full album experience. You may absolutely love this album.
A lot of people are,
too.
Which
is actually, I think it's like a 90 on Metacritic or something, which is fine. I mean, maybe we're a little under that. Go love this album because St. Vincent's awesome. Let us know your thoughts at www.velocitiesmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesmusic. As always, follow us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. Let us know what albums you'd like us to review for you on this channel. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.
Sweating, no one living behind me. Sweating, no